Hello class, it's Monday, the day before our class starts, and I am making you a little video to welcome you to class and to give you a few tips in how to succeed in my class. It's Monday here, our class starts tomorrow. I'm going to move this just a little bit. Our class starts tomorrow, and I can't wait to meet all 35 of you. A couple of folks have already posted in our introduction forum, and I'm excited to see that. So, not a lot of content in this video, except I would like to share some helpful tips with you. I've been teaching for more than a year at Ashford now, and I've gotten pretty familiar where students tend to go awry in my online classes and what they can do to really succeed. So I have a really short list for you. 3 ways you can go awry in my class and 3 ways that you can really succeed in my class. I'm going to share that with you now. Okay, here are the top 3 ways that students go awry in my class. Number 1, they get behind. So I know for a lot of you, this might be your first online class, or maybe it's your second class, and you probably have a job, or you're a stay-at-home mom, which means you have a couple of jobs, or you're in the military, or a combination of all of those things, and you have very little free time. I want to remind you that these classes pack the same amount of information that you would get in a 16-week class in a traditional classroom. So there's a ton of reading, and it's pretty easy to get behind. The problem is if you get behind in 1 week, next week you have the same amount of work to do and the same still very busy life. So I really want to encourage you to stay on top of and ahead of your work. It's going to be really important. The number 2 way that students go awry in my class is they get super excited about what they're writing in the discussion forums, and they fail to cite where they found that interesting piece of information and provide a full reference at the end. So I want you to please be very careful to make sure any information you're using that is not common knowledge gets properly cited and a full reference given at the end. If you have any questions about how to do this correctly, please feel free to write to me. I'm happy to help clarify it, and I've got some great tools to help you with that. The 3rd way that students go awry in my classes is something big happens in their life, something big that is going to keep them from being able to complete their work on time, and they fail to communicate that issue with me as it's happening. And then we get to the end of the 5 weeks and they're like, oh my God, I was so sick and now I need extra time, and there's kind of no system to set that up for them. So I want to tell you, first of all, please be very sure to read my late policy, which is over here in the left-hand margin. Our discussion forums, the discussion is the equivalent of being in class, and that discussion happens in the week that it happens. So I do not allow any late entries on discussion or quizzes. We want to do each other all the favor of being present with one another for the discussion. So no late entries on your discussion forums. However, for your big 3 assignments, I do allow, in the case of crisis, a 48-hour window after the assignment is over that you can still receive half the points you would have received had you turned it in on time. Please note that if you take that extra time, particularly on your final paper, which is 25% of your grade, it's going to have a significant impact in your final grade. But that option is available to you if you need it. So remember, connected to the late policy, and just in general, if you get into a crisis, if you're deployed, if you're in the hospital, if you've suddenly and with no foreknowledge had a baby, shoot me an email, let me know what's going on. Okay, the 3 ways you can succeed in this class. Number 1, do the reading. Do all the reading before you start to post in the discussion forums and before you take the quizzes. Take thoughtful notes while you're doing the reading. This is going to make you sound much more like you know what you're talking about. Give you a higher quality of discussion posts and therefore a better grade. It's also going to make the class much more interesting and engaging for you. So I want to really encourage you to do the reading first. Next, of course, turn in your work on time. It's in your interest to get the maximum number of points that you can. Of course, I want this class to be all about engaged learning and conversation and enthusiastic response to the topics with one another, but it's also true that you have to get a certain number of points to get a grade that reflects the work that you're putting into the class. So turn in your work on time. And the last way that students can succeed in my class is to remember that I am using the same Google you are. So please, if you get pressed for time, it makes a lot more sense to write a short response than it does to cut something from the internet, because I'm here to tell you that I find it in my classes, every class. You can find that exciting bit of information, share it with your fellow students, cite it, provide a full reference at the end, and then we're all golden. But if you don't do that, you're going to get a 0 on that post. All right. Also, please remember as we work our way through the class that all of your assignments are automatically run through Turnitin. So not only do you have me making sure that your work is original, but the university, before it ever gets to me, does an originality check on all your work. So you want to be very sure that that the work you're turning in is your own. Last class, I actually had a student who turned in a paper that had been written by her sister and submitted to Ashford. We caught it. Don't let that happen to you. Okay, so exciting. Over this next week, we get to learn a little bit about one another. We get to start reading the very interesting, sometimes very heavy topics that we have over these 5 weeks. And I look forward to seeing your initial posts. So go do the reading and write me some interesting stuff. Be thoughtful and engaged and interesting in your comments back to your fellow students. Remember, nobody's thrilled to see a peer response that says, "Hey, I agree with you. Great work. Hope you do well at school." That's sort of a conversation stopper, not a conversation starter. So let's all talk to one another. Let's learn all about this fascinating world that we live in. Let's remember to be respectful and kind to one another. And I look forward to learning all about you. Have a great evening.